Welcome to the Strong Enough podcast, where we talk about the challenges and celebrate the triumphs of people from all walks of life. I'm your host, Claudia. Today's guest is going to share how she was able to remove the mask she'd been wearing since she was 5 years old, and how she was able to tell her anxiety and her perfectionism to get in the back seat because she wasn't going to let it drive her life anymore. Please help me welcome Brittni Cosgrove. Brittni, how are you doing today?
Hi, I am great. How are you?
I am also great. And I'm so excited to chat with you today because in the very few minutes that we have already gotten to know each other, I just love your energy and your smile. For those of you who are listening, you are missing out. Your smile is absolutely gorgeous.
Thank you. I got it from my mama. We are spitting images.
I love that. Well, it's a shame she can't be here, so we can do a little side by side, but maybe for another episode. Well, I would love it if you would share a little bit about yourself with the audience.
Absolutely. And again, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. I can already tell today is going to be amazing. So I'm Brittni. I am a transformational life and business coach, and I help people basically master their inner worlds so that they can have the outer world they desire. And this has come through years and years of my own personal playing around with how can I make my life on my terms. So growing up, I was very type A. I struggled with pretty severe anxiety starting around kindergarten. Like I was a little tiny warrior out there. And that kind of grew throughout all of my school years, throughout college, into my young adulthood. And it just really stemmed from this desire for perfectionism and always striving to be quote unquote good enough. Like I said, very type A, very driven, very ambitious. And I just had a really hard time grounding that into things that were both sustainable, but also things that were aligned with me. And so it was a lot of just chasing what others wanted for me and a lot of wearing a mask to be who others wanted me to be. And it wasn't until I hit my breaking point in my kind of mid-20s. And it was actually right around the pandemic time. So it was all very synchronistic that when the world shut down, my world kind of shut down, and it gave me complete space to just hit that pause button, to stop and reflect and really get crystal clear on what am I doing? What do I want? I had been career driven since I was maybe 7, since I learned what the word career meant. And I loved working and I was really good at just creating and I had all this momentum, but I was so burnt out. I was exhausted. My anxiety was so bad that I was throwing up every single morning. I was a mess, even though I had all the external success. And so in 2020, when everything came to a halt, including my own life and my work and everything like that, I was, for the first time since I could remember, actually able to just sit with myself and really sit with my life and what I had built so far, the things that had worked, the things that were not working. And it was such an impactful time for me to be able to reflect. And that was actually the year that I started my first online business. And that was when I fell in love with entrepreneurship and being able to create something that is for me, that I can be proud of, that I can infuse myself into. And while that business itself was not my big passion project and it was just a nice little starter, it really opened me up to this world. And it was at the end of that year that I actually started working with my own coaches and I started diving into what life coaching is and what different types of transformational work looks like. And in 2021, I went through the most transformational year of my entire life, where I just did some deep excavation work and I just was feeling emotions I didn't even know I had. I didn't even know how to feel before this. It was both intense and incredible. And I think I cried more that year than I have in the rest of my life combined. But I also became the most magnetic, true version of me. It was just so liberating. Definitely not easy, but so, so powerful. And then it was one of those things where once I was experiencing it and learning, like, this is what freedom is, this is what peace is, this is what life is, what living is. It was something where I knew to my core that this wasn't just a fun thing I went through. It wasn't just for me. There was something to my core, in my soul, that I knew I was meant to share this path and share these techniques and help other people experience that level of transformation to where they are just blossoming. And it has been the most rewarding and beautiful experience since then.
You have given me so much to discuss. I want to start by going way back. So you talked about at the age of 5, really feeling anxiety and perfectionism. Now, I know for me, I can relate to that because I felt that too. Mine, I think, stemmed from the fact that I was an athlete already at the age of 5 and was competing and began to expect a lot more of myself than anybody else expected from me. Do you know what yours stemmed from?
That's an amazing question. And I think it's a kind of a different combination of several things. So my kind of archetype breakdowns are, first, I'm the oldest child. So that definitely plays an element. I am a Virgo sun and an Aries rising. I am, and then I'm a number 1 on the Enneagram, which is the perfectionist.
Mhm.
So those are all kind of elements of my being that really strive for perfection and really value integrity and good quality work and putting out that best, the competitive side, all of that. On top of that, I was playing music. I was a pianist. I come from a family where they are very loving, but part of how they show love is through criticism. And so I think it was just all these different elements of both from within, wanting to be my best and also be the best. And then also receiving love by hearing, this is how you can improve. This is where you could be, kind of they were helping me see my potential. And that did backfire a little bit, but it was all coming from love. And so I do think it was kind of that inner outer mix that really got the ball rolling.
How did it feel growing up? Because it's hard enough being a teenage young lady in any world with the perfect circumstances. And you were experiencing that anxiety that it sounds like was maybe even increasing a little bit as you got older. What can you talk about that was really tough for you in those years, because of your anxiety, because of the things you were dealing with inside? How did that make things more difficult outside?
Such a good question. And it's so interesting because as I was going through it, and it definitely was something that increased over time, but it was kind of like that, the frog in the boiling water analogy. It was such a slow and constant increase that I never even realized it was growing. By the time I was older, by the time I was in college, I just thought it was who I was. I thought that was my normal way of being. I had no idea there was it was all I knew. And so I would say, especially my high school years, but even kind of those middle school years, I just was at such a disconnect of who I was versus who the world saw. And if you were to go back and ask anyone from my world during that time, words to describe me: cheerful, cheerleader, bubbly, always happy. Those were kind of the common traits that were seen through this mask that I was putting up to the world. And I think on the flip side of that, I was suffering so much inside where I was constantly battling with my weight and eating disorders. And I went through some self-harm experiences. And it was just a lot of trying to cope, trying to figure out how can I make this work? How can I control things? It was almost like I felt like my world was so out of control that I was looking for any type of control. And so that looked like controlling what I could eat. It looked like controlling pain I could feel. It was a really big battle of how can I make myself feel better without letting anyone else know I'm weak. And I think that was a really big part, is I was under the misunderstanding that the battles I was going through was just my own weakness. And because of that, I didn't want anyone to see the battle. I didn't want anyone to know I would struggle. It would have broken young me's heart if people actually saw, oh, I'm suffering, I'm in pain, I'm barely making it through, because I didn't want that. And I also wanted to be the strong pillar for everyone else and make sure that everyone else could rely on me and come to me and all of that. And it was just confusing. And even when I look back and I'm reflecting on it now, of course that was confusing, because I was on the full sides of the spectrum trying to be one or the other, when in reality, it was just kind of a mix of it all.
I really appreciate you opening up about some of the struggles that you went through, because I think a lot of people do go through, issues with their weight, which is more so an issue with control, and the same with the self-harm. And you talked about having that mask on. And I know, I can completely relate to that. I've tried to hang up my mask for good, but it's hard. So, will you talk a little bit about your progression of realizing, that you're constantly wearing that mask? And was it scary to take it off and wonder how people might react to the real you?
Oh, so good. And yes, absolutely. It has. And this is really something that just in the last couple of years, I've leaned into so hard. So it was during my transformational year that I was realizing I wore the mask. I think
Mhm.
before that, I just didn't understand all these parts of me that were at war with each other. And like I said, I thought it was normal. I thought that's just how it was. And I think when I started doing my own inner work and really facing those inner demons and really facing the parts of myself that I had rejected and pushed away and criticized and all of that, all of those
Mhm.
parts, while I was working through that, I was able to stop identifying with the failure, with the anxiety, with the struggles. I am not my struggles. I have struggles, but I am not them. And as I started going through this almost like re identification of myself, I started finding who I actually am at my essence, at my soul level, at my core. And I was able to see that the mask, it's not bad to have a mask. It was just me trying to protect myself and trying to help others. But I could clearly see that it wasn't servicing anyone. It wasn't helping me. It wasn't helping people that looked up to me. And it wasn't helping people close to me. Because by wearing that mask, I was cutting myself off from help and support, but I was also cutting off the vulnerability and the truth and just the honesty and realness that is life. And I think this is something that we see a lot, like for example, in social media, there's a highlight reel that everyone sees. That
Mhm.
was kind of like how I lived my life. I was trying to only let people see the good, the joy, the excitement, and pretending like there is no darker side. There are no struggles. There's no flip side that people don't want to
Mhm.
see. And so through this process of finding my identity and really reclaiming who I was and realizing both what the mask was, why I had the mask in the first place, and coming to terms with the fact that wearing a mask isn't the supportive role I thought it was actually much easier to let it go and lay it down. And then I would say I went through a process that was very internal, where I just kind of grieved my past self, as well as grieving the past experiences that I hadn't let myself go through. And I was trying to almost re-meet myself. I was like, who is this new person? Like, who is this little powerhouse that's ready to come out? And there definitely was some projections as to what people would think, how they would receive this new version of me. And throughout my transformational process, there was relationships that got lost along the way because they were not ready for who I was ready to be. And so through that, I took my time to really come to terms with who I actually was and who I wanted to be, and that this is me, not the mask. That was just a little facade for a bit, but like, this is me. And then once I really got comfortable with that authenticity, I just kind of started testing out the waters, and it started with my family. And I had, a big conversation with them about, hey, these are the things I'm not hiding anymore. These are the things I went through. And this might be hard to hear because you've never seen this side of me, even though you've known me my entire life. But this is my truth. And then from there, kind of introducing my close friends to it and building that confidence. And throughout that process, it was both, like I said, building the confidence and really just allowing myself to be who I am and saying, I'm not going to be for everyone, and that's okay. And then along the way, as I have very, very much found that I am not for everyone, letting myself have the human experience that goes with that. Because rejection is such a core wound, but really, it's not them rejecting me, it's them rejecting their idea of me. And at the end of the day, either way, it's okay. We're not for everyone. And if we were, that's not exciting. That's not unique. It's not different. It's not real.
How boring would that be?
Mm-hmm.
You talked about, some friends and people who didn't come along the journey with you, and whether that was your decision or their decision. I would love for you to talk a little bit about that because, I have experienced similar things. I feel like we have very parallel stories. But I found as I began to change and, began to decide, this is what I want to do. This is who I am. This is who I'm going to be. This is what I'm presenting to the world. That some of the people that I had been associating with just weren't right for that new me, in my opinion. It just didn't serve that person that I wanted to become. And not in a selfish way, but just in a way that you want to surround yourself with people who are like you, who can not only uplift you, but also challenge you and make you even better, and you make them even better. I would love for you to talk a little bit about that as well, because I think sometimes people are afraid to break up with a friendship or break up with a family member or whatever. So, will you talk a little bit about what that process was like for you and how it empowered you in moving forward to the real you?
Absolutely. And it has been a very empowering journey because it's been one of the most personally just painful parts of the whole experience, because the highs come from learning new parts of me and embracing new parts of me and healing and all of these really energizing things. But the reality is that there's also lows. And for me, it kind of kickstarted with the ending of my long-term relationship for exactly what you're saying. And actually, when I look back, the vast majority of the relationships that did not come through to this other side with me, there was nothing that happened. There was no incident or action or anything along those lines to blame. It was simply, like you said, it just was no longer right. It was just time to move in different directions. But I do think that me having that first experience be the most important and pivotal relationship in my life gave me that kind of sense of the spectrum of like, okay, I mean, it doesn't get more painful than this. And it was, I don't know if I would say easier, but it just gave me that sense that I am so much stronger than I realize. And I truly can get through anything. And throughout that process, my mantra was just, how can I hold it all? And I asked myself that all day, every day. How can I hold it all? And that has been something I've come back to each and every time I find a relationship hasn't come along with me. Because it's happened. I mean, even as recently as a few weeks ago, I realized that one of my dearest friends is, again, just moving in a different direction with her life.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that for her and I celebrate that for her. But I very much had the human emotions and the human experience of, oh my gosh, one of my dearest friends doesn't like me anymore. What did I do wrong? What's wrong with me? It does make me question things. But every time I've gone through that, it's kind of two different directions. One, it really solidifies my trust in myself and my path. Because at the end of the day, I am so solid in the direction I'm going and what I'm creating in my life that really there is no doubt for me there. And it just kind of continues. Every time that I realize how that doesn't waver, it strengthens it even more. And then on the flip side, it's allowed me to really just meet my human self over and over and over again, to allow the emotions, to allow the rawness, to allow the hurt. Because at the end of the day, we're all humans having a human experience, and you can only experience as much of the good, quote unquote good, as you're willing to experience the other side of the spectrum. And so when I realize that a relationship has been lost or has just run its ground, then that just helps me open up to say, okay, it was amazing for what it was. I cherish the experience. But when a door closes, another one will open. And it's creating space in my life for even more aligned relationships and relationships that match where I'm at now. And then, like you said, that encourage the growth, encourage me to be my best self, to go bigger, to dream bigger. And I think that that's so scary, but so incredible, and something that it's something where you only will see how powerful it is when you lean into the experience. Because yeah, it's going to be scary, and there's going to be tears, and there's going to be hurt, but it is so worth it. It's kind of like there's this story of a baby elephant that was kept at the circus, I think it was. So it's a baby elephant, and it has a rope tied around its leg so that it can only go so far. Well, once the elephant is full grown, it still never leaves the area that the rope is connected to, even though it is so much stronger and could easily walk away. But that elephant never realized it could expand its capacity, that it could expand its experience, that it could do more. And I think once I woke up to how that's how a lot of people live their lives, is living at set points simply because they don't realize they are at a set point. When I learned that for myself, it was so eye-opening. And that does include the relationships that we go through.
I really want everybody watching or listening to like rewind and redo that whole section, because it was amazing. And what I really appreciate that you said, or maybe that you didn't say, was when these relationships have run their course, that's okay. And you didn't chase them back down. You didn't dim your light to fit back in with them. And I want people to hear that and to understand that if you have to dim your light to make something work or to continue to make something work, it is not right. So thank you for pointing that out and for saying it so beautifully and so eloquently. So everybody, that's your homework. Go back, re-listen, save that section. You're going to need it again. Okay. I now want to talk about your first online business, because any first business is hard, really hard to do. And there's a very high failure rate. And you were a person who was a perfectionist and really wanted everything to succeed. And a lot of people in your position might have made excuses for reasons why they couldn't start that business, or why they shouldn't start that business, or why they weren't ready yet. And it continues. So talk a little bit about your thought process and the confidence that you were able to wrangle up to do that.
Yes. Oh, and it's so true that the story is always, oh, I'm not ready, or I shouldn't, or I should do it differently. And I love debunking all of the narratives that we hear in our heads. So it's so funny because it was just something that kind of got inspired organically. And then I just went from there. And there definitely was a lot of perfectionism that came through, down to, and I was in the nitty gritty because I tried to outsource as minimal as possible. So I built the entire website. I was doing the marketing, all of the content creation, all of the designs, and I was in Photoshop all day, every day. And it was just a lot. But so I will say I definitely had a lot of hours that could have been seen as wasted in hindsight, because it was just going in to just perfect all the little details. However, At the same time, I was also following my joy and I was loving the creativity and I was loving making the decisions, being in charge and getting to have that creative liberty with the whole experience. And so throughout it, I think that it was something where there was the frustrations and there was the confusion and there was some fear, especially around fear of the unknown. I think that this is where my more analytical and the perfectionism comes through. I was fearful of privacy policies or like making sure my terms and conditions were perfect, making sure that I was following all tax and regulations and just the whole conversation. And there was a lot of uncertainty around that and a lot of just hours of research, hours and hours and hours of research. And I think that that was probably what held me back the most was kind of projecting onto the more legal side of things, even though that was really not something I needed to be concerned at that point. Or I could have just made it easier for myself and consulted someone who's actually an expert in that field. But like I said, on the flip side, I was just feeling so alive and so excited. So even though I was spending hours and hours and hours every day in creation mode, I was so energized and just so happy with everything. So I think during that time, and then the other caveat is it was also during 2020. So I had the time. I
had it.
endless hours to work with it. So I am very grateful for that experience because otherwise I would not have gotten nearly as far as I did. Mm-hmm. So for everyone that is kind of in that similar boat though, where they're looking at all the to-do lists, all the things that quote need to get done before they can launch, before they can sell, before they can be in service, whatever it is for you, just slow it down and ask yourself, is it really true? Is it actually true you're not ready? Is it actually true your product is not ready? And then if you say yes, I want you to slow it down even more and ask yourself again, can you know beyond a shadow of a doubt it's not ready? Could you prove it in a court of law that it's not ready? And so these are the questions where it's so easy to project what feels safer. But if you slow it down, I can almost guarantee that one of two things is going to happen. Either you're going to realize that you are projecting and hiding behind that fear and that you are ready, your product is ready, your service is ready, and it's go time. Or the truth will be, no, it's not ready. And you're going to find highlights of what does need to be worked on. Because maybe there are skills that need to be improved. Maybe there's a physical product that needs to go back for another prototype. Maybe there's actual tangible things that do need to happen. And that's okay too. But when we're hiding behind, I'm not ready, it's not ready, it's hiding behind something without taking action. So when you can get clear on why it's not ready or why you're not ready, now you have an action plan and a game plan to follow to actually get ready.
Let me just say, I feel you on those T's and C's because I recently been in that boat where I'm like, does this say everything it needs to say? I don't know. So I get you. I hear you. And yeah, I'm just going to go on the internet and find one that's already done. Just be done with it. What I love about what you just said also is that it's really applicable to so many more things than just starting your own business. You know, it can be moving out from an abusive relationship. It can be moving on from a job that's not right for you. It could be moving to a new town or changing your major in college. Like really anything that's a decision that could be something that you're dragging out or making excuses for, you've really just set kind of an easy way for people to sit down and determine if that's really real or if they're bullshitting themselves and making excuses. So I love that. I think that is absolutely amazing. I want to know, with everything that you've gone through and with, you know, who you are today, how do you feel now about anxiety and perfectionism?
I see them as like two toddlers that I usually have in the car with me, but that are never in the driver's seat anymore. So I definitely over the last couple of years have really healed some of the core wounds that were promoting both the anxiety and the perfectionism. And I've also gotten really intimate with why they're there, why these traits show up in my life, when they show up in my life, what are the things that trigger them? What are the areas of life that are more prone to them? And then I've also gotten really clear on the deeper desire behind these traits. Again, always coming back to trying to protect me from rejection, trying to make sure that I'm following my core values of integrity and growth and things like that. And so now I have a really compassionate and acceptance-based relationship with both the anxiety and perfectionism. Now, I am also still human. And so there are days where the anxiety is stronger than normal, and that frustrates me. I feel when I feel frustrated that I'm feeling the anxiety. And again, I just allow it all. I allow the human experience without making it mean anything, because it doesn't mean that the frustration's bad. It doesn't mean the anxiety's bad. It just means there's a lot of emotions bubbling up in that moment. And so when I notice anxiety, when I notice the perfectionism, those are good signs for me to hit pause and just kind of take a step back from the situation. So I can find like, what is triggering it right now? Is it a thought? Is it something on my to-do list? Is it something deeper than that? Is it an experience I recently had? What's the trigger? Because then I can go and I can either put something into action to work it out, or if it's something I can't change, then I just get to meet those emotions, meet those sensations, and just say, this is going to be one of those days. It's not going to take me out of the game, but this day we're going to feel a little bit more anxious than yesterday, and just let that be okay. And it's crazy because when I think back to what I used to experience on a regular basis, I mean, just a few years ago, when I was thriving and doing amazing and feeling my best, my anxiety was sitting at an 8 out of 10 or so. And now, even on my worst days where I am struggling and I'm feeling overwhelmed and maxed out, my anxiety it hits maybe a 4 out of 10. It's so vastly different. And I think that's just part of seeing it too, is seeing the change of how this entity of anxiety has also changed. The more compassionate I became with the anxiety, the less gripping it was. And the perfectionism, every time I catch the perfectionism in action, it weakens that pattern so that the next time, either I'm going to see the perfectionism beforehand, or I will at least see it sooner in the cycle. And it's just constantly, these are core elements of my life. These are not things that I will have healed or, done. I don't know if I'll ever be done with either of them. They're part of who I am. But these are how I know that no matter where life takes me, no matter the ups and the downs, whatever comes, it's okay if they're in the car. All emotions have a place. Everything can be in the car, but I am in the driver's seat.
New homework for everybody. Rewatch the whole episode, just the whole thing. Because what I love about what you just said is you made it clear that those things don't go away. I think that's the other mistake that people make, whether it's fears, whether it's trauma responses and triggers. They never often, I mean, sometimes they might for some people, but for most, they never entirely go away. And I think a lot of people get frustrated with that and they feel like a failure when it creeps back in. And I love your kind of analogy, because I say the same thing with fear, is put fear in the back seat. It's can ride with us. That's fine. We want it to come along because in the grand scheme of things, it does have a meaningful purpose in our life. But we're going to put it in the back seat because we've got control and we're not going to let fear drive us. So I love that you brought that up, but I really love that you just made it very clear to everybody that these traits, these circumstances, these feelings, they might never be entirely gone. And that is entirely normal.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, everybody just stand up and clap right now. Just wherever you're doing, just stand up, clap. We can't hear it. That's fine. Okay, moving on. I would love to hear, what is the most meaningful thing that you see in your clients? When you're working with somebody and you see that light bulb and you see that change happen, what's the most meaningful type of change or situation that you've seen that really was just so heartwarming and so amazing for that person, but for you to watch it as well?
Ooh, I have chills with this question. Oh my goodness, so many things. But honestly, what comes through the strongest is, and it's so perfectly piggybacking off of that last little conversation we had, is watching people change their relationship with their blocks. And because it's just so powerful. So first, it changes their way of being. It helps them stop rejecting parts of themselves and start incorporating this more holistic, I am whole, I am inherently worthy, that type of energy, really tapping into who they are. That's a very love-based, very compassion-based, very acceptance-based. And they start turning that inwards to themselves. And it's beautiful because that is where true self-love starts. And then on top of that, it creates a sense of pure empowerment for them because now they see how truly limitless they are, how truly capable they are. And they start feeling that inner freedom, maybe for the first time ever. Oh, you can see I get so excited about it.
I love it.
And it's just really, really liberating. And it's doing so in a way that is just so love and compassion based. I keep coming back to those words, but it's just a very magical way of being able to take leaps and bounds forward. You stop holding yourself back and it just opens up all of the doors.
I love it. I really do. We're going to talk about something else very magical before I let you go. They're magical to me anyway, and that is tattoos. As everybody knows, I love tattoos. I have a lot of tattoos. I don't have my next one planned. I normally always have like the next idea brewing, and I don't. So that's kind of a problem. Anyway, it's not about me. I know that you have some pretty amazing tattoos. I would love to hear, what is your most meaningful tattoo?
Oh, no.
I know.
I love them all. Oh my God.
I promise none of the other ones are listening. They will not hear you. They will not know. All your tattoos right now have earmuffs.
Oh,
So
okay. No one's listening. And just for everyone who is listening to know, so I have a sleeve and then I have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 other one-off tattoos. I would say though, I think there's really 2 that I would say are the most meaningful. They're tied. So the very first one, and I'll show you, this was my very first tattoo.
Aww,
it's a little airplane on the inside of my wrist. I actually got it in Peru when I was down there traveling back in college. It was my very first tattoo. And it's just always been so special. And that came from, people always ask, oh, because you like to travel, things like that. And well, yes, I do love it. Love all of those elements. Really, it was a symbol for me of who I become when I travel. So we didn't even get to touch on this, but back before I did my own inner work, the only way I could find to break out of my shell of perfectionism and control and anxiety was when I did some solo traveling around the world because I just became a whole different person. It was kind of like that was the only way I could give myself permission to let go of everyone else's expectations and standards. So to me, that was always my little note to myself of what my first taste of liberation and being on my own terms was. And then my other most meaningful one is on my ankle. I have a 3 stems of lupin. And it's a flower so I'm from the Pacific Northwest, and growing up, we had lupin fields on our property. And it was just, every summer was so magical. My sisters and I would go running through the lupin, and it's just gorgeous. And so there's 3 stems because I have 2 sisters. There's 3 of us girls,
Aww.
and we each have a matching tattoo of it. And so it's just special because it's kind of a homage to my roots where I grew up. And then it also is just very symbolic of the bond I have with my sisters.
Do you have any plans in the works for a next tattoo?
I do. So right now, my sleeve ends right about where my shoulder joint is, kind of right on that corner, I guess you could call it. And so my next step is going to be to finish that off, to go back onto my shoulder blade and a little bit into my collarbone and just on top of the shoulder and just fill that in a little bit. And then we'll just see what else I pick up along the way.
Right? Like I normally have a list of like just banger tattoos. Because do you ever find yourself just hanging out with friends or somebody comes to visit and they're just like, hey, let's go get tattoos? Does that happen to you?
All of my tattoos are that way.
It happens to me, yes. And so I'm just like, okay, because I always have that little banger, just like ready to go. So I love that. I also have an airplane. I have a paper airplane. It is on my foot and I am not flexible. So I can't. It's just not going to happen. But I appreciate the meaning behind your tattoos. And to me, that's what they're all about. It's about the stories that they tell and about the memories that they provide or that they, reignite when you look at them, and it makes you remember this situation or that situation that was like such an amazing time. Or, for me, some of mine are about a not so amazing time, but that I got through, and so it reminds me not of the crappy, but of the, I'm badass. Like I got through that. So I'm excited for the rest of what's actually this one, to get going. So I hope that you'll come back for a part 2, because first off, we're just going to have to see the tattoo, but even before that, we have so much more to discuss. So I would be honored, I'm just going to put it out there now, if you would come back for your part 2. You don't have to answer right now, but
I'm already in 100%.
Perfect.
This conversation was so delicious, so deep. And we just dove right in, which is my favorite. I'm a deep diver. I love that whole part of life. And so this was just incredible.
Thank you. Well, so we're going to get that scheduled. But before I let you go, I would love it if you can tell the audience where they can find you. So if they want to talk to you about coaching services, if they want to hear more about your travels in Peru with you, or if they want to come along for your next tattoo, where can they find you?
Absolutely. Okay. So the 2 best places to find me are on Instagram and my website. So on Instagram, it's Brittni.Cosgrove. And my first name is spelled a little different. It's a TTNI, Brittni, BRITTNI, .Cosgrove. And then my website is BrittniCosgrove.com. Come say hi. Come introduce yourself. I would love to connect with everyone listening. And I cannot wait.
Guys, head on over to Brittni's Instagram for sure. Click follow, let her know that you're there. Brittni, you, my friend, have been absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time to share some of your struggles on the way to becoming the person who you are today and giving others the knowledge and the understanding that they can do those difficult things too, and they can push past that fear, push past those negative behaviors, and be amazing and happy. So thank you so much.
Yes. And I'll just leave everyone with the last note that I am a stan, that if there is something on your heart, if there is a desire, something that wants to be created through you, that desire is on your heart for a reason. It's there for a reason. Lean into it. You can literally do anything. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Strong Enough podcast.
You can find us on your favorite podcast platform by searching Strong Enough. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Strong Enough Pod. If you have suggestions for an upcoming episode or a future guest, please reach out at strongenoughpod@gmail.com. Remember, you are worth it.